Okay, here we go. Hello, gang. Good evening. Welcome to the 10th of hopefully many episodes of Bard Advice, a Dungeons and Dragons themed podcast where I, Charles Chaz Yazik, the DM, the Bard, do my best to dole out advice. The last two episodes of this podcast have been held hostage by the situation that's going on with the OGL, although we have some pretty interesting news about all of that, which we will get into briefly. We also are going to get into questions tonight, because as I said, the last 2 weeks have been all of our time's been soaked up in this nonsense, so it'll be nice to go into some questions and talk about some lighter stuff and just get back to things. Hey, everybody. Hey, River, Pirate, Chris. Some people say rolling dice for stats in D&D is old-fashioned and outdated, but I think it builds character. Thank you, Chris. Always nice for having some levity here. So, right before we get into some talk about the OGL stuff, I do have a couple of things that I wanted to go over. The first of which, obviously, is to remind everybody at the top of the show to please send questions to bardadvice@gmail.com. It also looks like bardadvice, if that helps you remember. I have been getting a good amount of them lately, so I appreciate all of that. I am going to go through and get those churned out and get through those questions, especially now that we're back at the questions. So, just a reminder at bardadvice@gmail.com. Also, if you want to pick up some merch, you can do so over at manshorts.com. And my PayPal and Cash App and Venmo are all Yazik, if anybody is interested in donating for music stuff. So now all of the pluggy stuff is out of the way. I do also, at the top of the hour, because we haven't had one in a while, want to have a little art corner mention. It is going to be for a big friend of mine personally, as well as just the channel in general. It is Ant House Beats. I've got his logo up there. Ant is awesome. He's made a lot of my beats. A lot of you would probably know exactly which ones they were if you heard them. I know that he's made Jack of all trades. And honestly, if I hadn't woken up 20 minutes before this podcast, I would have just gone through and bragged about all of the different ones that he made, but I honestly can't remember which all of them are his. I know that Jack of all trades is his beat. I know that D&D swag is his beat, as well as several others. He's an incredible artist, in addition to producing crazy beats all the time, of which he has a bunch of music on Spotify and Apple Music and stuff that you can check out. He also does gaming. I really should have asked what he's playing lately. I know that he, at least as in the past, was playing Apex, but I'm not sure what he does on his streams. But I have put his link tree in the description, so you can go check out his stuff. So yeah, go check out Ant, because he's great. He's good people. He's friend of the pod, friend of Yazik. And he's actually working on a beat right now. Well, he's practically finished it. His turnaround is crazy. I was working on a diss track for the OGL called No GL. That was the plan, at least. I don't know if I'm going to do it or not, based on at least like the preliminary information we have. I'm not sure if everyone here has heard. I imagine that a lot of you have, but let's just pop over really quick and take a look at what our friends from Wizards have said. Now, I know that I said that we weren't going to talk about the OGL, and this is just the brief conversation we're going to have about it before we get into the podcast. Also, Trevor, thank you for the donation. Thanks for another live stream. Can't wait for more tracks to release. I'm working on it. You know, even if I don't do this OGL thing as a diss track per se, it'll most assuredly be on the album. So, man, it's just so good. Something tells me I'm a little worried about what's going to happen, but let's just quickly go through this message. It's not that long. So this was posted 7 hours ago on D&D Beyond regarding the OGL 1 and Creative Commons. So we have another message from Kyle. Again, what much smarter. Kyle should have been talking to people from the beginning. When you give us playtest feedback, we take it seriously. Oh, also, I should say, I had not taken the survey yet. I did not realize they were going to close it this fast. But hey, man, yikes. That's, that's good, though, I think, because it shows that it's really affecting their bottom line. Already more than 15,000 of you have filled out the survey, and here's what you said. 88% do not want to publish TTRPG content under OGL 1.2. 90% would have to change some aspect of their business to accommodate OGL 1.2. 89% are dissatisfied with deauthorizing OGL 1. I'm actually surprised that's not higher. 86% are dissatisfied with the draft VTT policy. 62% are satisfied with including SRD content in Creative Commons, which is just like, yeah, I think it's probably more apathetic than satisfied. And the majority of those who were dissatisfied asked for more SRD content in Creative Commons. Well, yeah, if you're going to give us creative content stuff, like, just put it all in there. It'd be interesting to see because, sorry, I've got a sody popping in the, it's not really a sody, I guess. It's like a carbonated water. Excuse me. Yeah, from what I understand, if they put it under Creative Commons, there's not really any going back from that. It's kind of like well, whatever. These live survey results are clear. Yes, indeed. You want OGL 1, you want it irrevocably, you like Creative Commons. The feedback is in such high volume and its direction is so plain that we're acting now. Yeah, well, I think it might be too little too late for some people. Not for me, I don't think. Not that this stuff ever really made that much of an impact on me personally. For me, it was more about, like, solidarity with the community, because it was like, look, man, we're not like sports fans or like, people that are buying cars. Like, it's a very different thing. And I think they've found that out through this. This Creative Commons license makes the content freely available for use. We don't control that license and can't alter or revoke it. It's open and irrevocable in a way that doesn't require you to take our word for it, which, hey, that is good for us. That is true. It's open and irrevocable in a way that we don't have to rely on Wizards or Hasbro's good nature to stick to that. Now, this is assuming that this actually happens legally. I don't know that any of this is actually legal at the moment. It says by simply publishing it. Well, let's just go on first. Its openness means there's no need for a VTT policy. Placing the SRD under Creative Commons license is a one-way door. There's no going back. Our goal here is to deliver what you wanted. So what about the goals that drove us when we started this process? Like money. That's the goal. That's all you had to say. Why is there a paragraph after that? We wanted to protect the D&D play experience into the future. We still want to do that with your help. We're grateful that this community is passionate and active because we will need your help in protecting the game's inclusive and welcoming nature. Don't be like, okay, listen, oh man, that was crazy, huh? We almost got really greedy. Well, don't worry. We're going to work with you to protect us from being greedy. Doesn't need all that. We wanted to limit the OGL to TTRPGs. With this new approach, we're setting that aside and counting on your choices to define the future of play. Here's a PDF of SRD with Creative Commons. By simply publishing it, we're placing it under irrevocable Creative Commons. We'll get it hosted in a more convenient place next week. It was important to take this step now, no question. Yeah, that makes me wonder if this is actually true. I'm sure that the true lawyers among the rules lawyers will confirm this. Let me see what's going on in chat. I feel like I'm like going off and not. Oh, yeah, you're welcome for not slurping into the mic. I try to avoid that because, like, it doesn't bother me, but I know it drives people crazy. Just told my wife that they were stupid for trying that with this community. Yeah, I'm honestly kind of surprised. Yes, you can't copyright basic rules. That is true. That is true. But it makes me wonder if if doing this, if this means that they're going to be less aggressive in litigation. I guess we'll find out. It was important that we take the step now, so there's no question. Here it is. We'll be closing the OGL 1-2 survey now, which is, I kind of wanted to go off on there and pop off a bit, but it looks like everybody else did first. We'll keep talking with you about how we can better support our players and creators. Thanks, as always, for continuing to share your thoughts. Kyle Brink. Thanks, Kyle. We'll see if this stuff is indeed true. I don't know. This seems to be the Hasbro CEO, the Wizard CEO, and the guy in charge of digital at D&D's fault. Yeah, I don't know if it's as simple as it being like individuals' faults, though, right? Because, like, at the end of the day, those CEOs still have to answer to shareholders. So, being a CEO has got to be... I mean, I'm sure that there's a lot of great stuff about it, but there's probably a lot of crappy stuff about it. And in particular, if you're in a space like that, I'm sure that Kyle and a lot of his colleagues are, and they've expressed that it's not like, this is, by the way, I'm not suggesting any direct quotes. This is just all speculation and things that I've heard. But from what I've heard, they're not like, it's not a happy, nice place to work. But I mean, I don't know that any business is at scale, right? Like when you're talking about making money and then that's all you do is make money, which once you get to scale, that is all you do. Like otherwise you wouldn't scale. If your goal wasn't to make like billions of dollars, then you would just run your shop and your store for your whole life. So like the idea of scaling is to get more money. It's like all this stuff going on with Ticketmaster. And people are like, could you believe Ticketmaster? And it's like, can I believe what? That Ticketmaster wants to make as much profit as possible? Of course I can believe that. Do I think that what's going on is, needs some regulation, quick, fast, and in a hurry? Of course. But like, make no mistake, they're not breaking the law in the strictest sense. They're just trying to maximize their profit. That's what every company's doing. I think that with Wizards, though, we're just not the ones, I said it early on in all of this stuff, like, don't throw rocks at the murder hobos. It's not a good idea. And, I'm actually pretty surprised that they backed off as much as they did. Seemingly, keep in mind. Again, I don't know how much any of this is actually like legal or set in stone yet. At the moment, it looks really nice. It looks like they're saying all of the things that they're supposed to say. Looks like they're saying all the stuff they should have said from the beginning. But I think we need to take it with a grain of salt, especially considering that, like, don't forget, the only reason that any of this even came to light is because it was leaked. So, like, if it hadn't have leaked, it probably would have just happened. And then people would have been like, oh, what is this new OGL that exists? It's good that it leaked. It's good that the community came together and showed Wizards that we were pissed off. And it's good that this post has been made on D&D Beyond. I still am keeping an eye on the situation, and I suggest everybody else to too. Don't like run back to D&D Beyond and start spending a bunch of money. Give it a couple of days. See how this pans out, because like, Wizard, and I'm not suggesting that this is what they're doing, but it's a possibility. They could have just had Kyle put this out to just kind of like calm people down, because since they know they can't do the copywriting on the rules, they're like, listen, just say that the OGL won't go anywhere, and say that the SRD is going to be in Creative Commons, and then that we'll catch back up with them. And it's like, okay, well, that doesn't really answer what's going to happen with D&D, what's going to happen with publishing when it comes to like D&D Beyond. I don't know. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're not going to go after other VTT companies for other stuff, right? Like, in fact, you could argue that it's kind of a tactical move for them to just push the SRD to Creative Commons, because that way, when they move forward with litigation, they can be more hyper-specific with what they're going after. And not to mention that it kind of makes them look like the good guy, to be like, look at what we did. But we talked about that when they originally released that info, right? Where it's like, this is not really a flex. This is just like, you're taking something that you can't copyright and then putting it into an open license for us. And it's like, I mean, it's not really They already exposed themselves for the liches they are. Yikes. Yeah, I mean, people feel that way. It's totally about the movie and 1D&D. I don't believe the moment for they're done. You don't believe for a moment that they're done. Hey, well, maybe I'll release the damn diss track anyways. Keep your eye on it, everybody. That's all we'll say about that. All right, let's move on to some actual questions for once on this dang podcast where we're supposed to answer questions. The first one is from River, as I mentioned that last week, and I'm glad you're here, River. Hello. So let's get into it. River asks, what are your favorite magic items to give to the party? So I think it depends on the party, but I will say this. When it comes to magic items, I think the more specific, the better. And one of my fondest memories or examples of that is we used to have a buddy named Jeff, and his girlfriend was Irene. They were our friends, Jeff and Irene. And Irene Irene DM'd a campaign once. Almost all of the campaigns we've ever run were homebrew. But Irene DM'd once, and she was great. It was killer. She was, like, so descriptive, and, like, she's just an awesome DM. And at one point in the campaign, we had to, like, save this village from, like, a monster or something. I don't even remember, like, what we did, because it's kind of irrelevant. But, like, what was so dope is that when she gave us magic items, they were all, like, super specific to us. So, like I was the bard in that campaign, and I got, like, we all got, like, items or weapons that were, like, themed to an animal that was, like, themed to the class, if that makes sense. So, like, I was the bard, so I was given it was called, I think, the Loot of the Howler Monkey, and she had, like, tweaked this existing magic item to make it, like, I don't know, just, like, very specific to me. And she did that with everyone. And so that's really nice, I think, because not only are you getting a cool thing, but you're getting a cool thing that's yours, right? Like, it's not like you're just getting a sword of +2, but, like, you're getting, like, I don't know, like the sword of the jaguar, which gives you, like, you know, +2 to your attack because the crystal that it was made with, you know what I mean? Like, I think that your, as the DM, I think that your description of the item, as well as, like, the specificity of the item, is what's the best. But I'm looking at some of the stuff in chat. Deck of many things. Pants of eternal stench. Bag of holding. Most will explode it because they used it without reading the description. Oh, that's true. How about adding munchkin items into your D&D gear, like the two-handed sword? Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. River says, in my games, I have an ego weapon that's a dagger with a high int and cha. It's specifically for druids and rangers. And if it finds you worthy, it can reincarnate anyone it stabs. Whoa, dude. That is cool as hell. You'd have, like, a 13 ghost situation going on with just, like, a... And it's funny that it's for druid and rangers because it totally sounds like a rogue weapon. Still want my spell scroll printing press. Oh, yeah. How's it going, man? Gonna do an actual D&D campaign again. Yeah, I'd like to. We don't have any immediate plans to. We're working on a new series at the moment. But I'm not opposed to it. I do want to play again. I want to play 3.5 so badly. It's starting to hurt. I don't want to DM. I just want to play. Just give your players a bag of holding and a portable hole and wait for the fun to begin. Yeah, didn't we do that in an episode? I think we did. I think Lance did the bag of holding portable hole move. 3-5 for real. Yeah, man, I love 3-5. So, I'm down, Pirate. Send it. Well, the problem is like, when? You know, that's my problem. When am I going to do it? Because I'm already like, I literally, I was out doing stuff. I was doing a bunch of stuff today, running errands, and I came home and like had dinner and was watching stuff with my wife. And then I fell asleep. And I woke up like 20 minutes before the podcast. And I was like, shit, I got to get out there. So yeah, I mean, assuming that I can get myself scheduled for the time, then we'll get it done. I'm getting some water. You killed a BBEG that way once. It was going to TPKS, so my character sacrificed himself to save the party and the world. It was great. That's pretty fucking cool. An IKEA edition. Oh shit, that would be fun. Oh man, that would be really funny. Like they get trapped in IKEA and then have to like fight their way out. For the immovable rod, I have my character fashion a thick leather harness that allowed him to hit the button as a reaction as a non-spell slow fall. Wow. Okay, well, hopefully that answers your question, River. Yeah, that's the magic items I like stuff that's like personalized. So that's my favorite kind of stuff to give away. To like, you know, make it feel special, I guess. So thank you for the question. Moving on to the next question. This one is from Becca. And Becca asks, I'm new to D&D. This is my second campaign. It's a homebrew, and this time I wanted to try a character who is very different from what I usually do. At first I was excited, but lately I've been having trouble relating to / getting into character. Any advice? Should I just ask the DM if I can create a new one? Thanks, loves the show. So, when it comes to first of all, if you're new to D&D, that's incredible insight as a new player. I certainly didn't have that insight when I was a new player. When I was a new player, I just wanted to do a bunch of damage and do cool stuff. I'm still kind of that way. But yeah, I think it's really insightful of you to recognize that, like, not only is it, I think that let's just start at the beginning, which is that you're in a good place at the moment because you're doing better than most in that you're actively seeking out doing something that you're not already used to or comfortable with, which is commendable in and of itself because, you know, it's never easy to try new stuff, and especially as a new player, and to do something that is like way against what you're used to can be intimidating, and at times it can be boring because it's just like, well, why do I care about this? Like if you're somebody who wants to tank or really likes DPR, but then you want to play like more of a support, like background type character, it can be a difficult adjustment for sure. What I would say is that I think leaning into your character's little idiosyncrasies and personality will help you. So like, okay, when we played the We Play and I was Verena, so we didn't write any of those characters when we did the We Play, and originally those were the y'all submitted those. Y'all being fans, viewers, friends of the channel submitted pre-made characters for us for that We Play campaign. So I did not build Verena, at least from a stat block standpoint. So Verena was built after the fact. Verena was a rogue barb, which, like, I don't usually fuck with. Not that I have anything wrong with, or anything against rogues, rather. They're just not really my style. And, like, if I'm doing a barbarian, it's usually, I'm just going full barbarian. So, I leaned into her personality because of that. Because I think that they're really kind of two games you're playing, right? Zork. Yes, it was Zork that she was addicted to. That was like the fantasy version of cocaine. Um, yeah, she was addicted to drugs. And I made that decision early on. First episode, in fact. Um, I don't really like rogues that much. If I play a barbarian, I'm just a barb. So like rogue barbarian, I was like, what? And I really didn't do much for combat in that whole campaign. Most of Verena was RP stuff. So I'd say leaning into the character and not just their personality traits per se, but also their flaws. You know, I don't know if you've built the character on D&D Beyond, or if you've done it in such a way where what do they call it in 5e, where it's like you have I don't know, there's like what are the things? The personality traits. Help me out, chat. You're a bunch of D&D players. What are the words? What is the stuff where it's like you know what I'm saying? I don't think I'm being very helpful. You know, when you get to the end of everything and like you pick your little backgrounds, and is it just flaws? Traits of personality? Is that all it is? Bonds, flaws, and ideals. Thank you. That's what I was thinking of. But I guess pretty much all of that stuff that you guys named. Yeah. Bonds, that's what I'm thinking of. Bonds, flaws, ideals. That stuff. I'd say look to that. Because that I think will find your answer as to like how you want to play that character. And then you asked, you know, should you ask the DM if you should just make a brand new character? I mean, if you want to, I think that you're fully within your right to do that. I think that most people would, you know, I think that if you explain to the DM that like you're really not happy with this choice and you want to try a different character, then they're probably up for it. Usually have my players choose extra stuff too, including vices and fears. Oh, I like vices and fears. Ooh, having a vice is really fucking cool. I mean, I do that automatically, I guess. I did that with Verena in 5 minutes. And that, if you watch the first episode of the We Play, that's what it's like. Like, everybody goes to the bar for a drink, and then Verena, like, goes to the bathroom to rip off a rail of cocaine. Like, so it was pretty immediate. I usually pick 2 of each bonds, flaws, and ideals to help make the character feel more dimensional. Yeah, I think it's good. And give the opportunity, a great opportunity to be a murder hobo. That's true, too. Yeah, maybe you just, like, don't say anything to the DM and just, like, let yourself die. That could happen. Let your character die. Jeez, I didn't mean to sound so dramatic. Yeah, you could just let that character die. Or, you could talk to the DM about it, and like maybe the DM will like take him out in like a real, you know, epic fashion in front of everybody, and then you could just like introduce your new character or whatever. I think you'll be fine. I think just like look into the nitty gritty of the existing character and see if there's anything that you can like attach to, or you know, create from thin air. Really, that's what I did with Verena and the drugs. Or if you're really, really unhappy, then just talk to the DM about starting a new character and then take it out in an epic fashion. Death of a character is usually good for the party. It helps bring them together and give them a common goal. That's true too. Yeah, and I made a TikTok about that, about how like you can introduce. Well, that was actually kind of a different thought. I talked about how you could introduce an NPC that was like really either good at something that you required them for, or like maybe really bad at something. But I also like the idea of killing off an NPC as a tool for bonding, and not only just bonding, but storytelling in general, right? It's an event. It's something that happens. And so it can act as a catalyst for other people to react. And those kind of moments are actually really great because like you as the DM can just kind of like let the thing happen. And then they, as the players, will move the story forward after that, because they will all be talking about how they're each respectively reacting, and then of course how they're going to move forward from here after this. So hopefully that answers your question, Becca. Yeah, I'd say just like stay true to the character, and if you don't like it, then just do what you want to do. So thank you. The first time I played, we made the mistake of entering a dungeon unprepared, and well, only the pet survived. That happens. TPKs are, you know, it has a name for a reason. So we got another question we're going to move to because the beginning talking about OGL took out a bigger chunk than I thought it would. But let's go to the next question here, what we've got set up from Austin. Austin asks, I have dealt with, and I'm still dealing with, ADHD, anxiety, and depression. I have gotten help with these things, but I still struggle from time to time. I have heard you deal with anxiety. So my question is, how do you handle anxiety in your daily life? Not great, is the short answer. I do have a medical cannabis prescription for the state. That goes a long way in the anxiety. I also think that, like, in general, keeping myself busy, and I mean, I know that that's not like the healthiest answer, because really the healthiest answer would be that, you speak with a professional. Really everybody, I'm of the opinion that every man, woman, and child in on the planet should have access to weekly therapy with a professional. Obviously that's not realistic. But I think that it's important to have somebody to talk to, just like a non-biased third party. Because if for nothing else, they have no real investment in you other than as a patient, right? So like, you could talk to friends and family, but all of that stuff is going to be, all of that information and all of those actions are going to be biased. Not that that's bad, but like, that's the thing about like talking to somebody who's like kind of a stranger, is that like they can really objectively make you see things from a different perspective. But as for keeping yourself busy, like for me, it's about keeping my mind occupied, because like depression's in there too. Don't get me wrong. I've also got like some anger issues. Like I'm kind of I'm more of a mental mess, I think, than people maybe realize, but I'm just doing my best, and all of us are. I think everybody is like anxious to a degree. I'm like clinically anxious, but I mean, so is my wife, so is my mother, so are a lot of people that I know. Especially now, because like, politics aside, these last couple of years have been fucking rough for everybody. And then, was community specific. We've been going through this stuff with the OGL, and then like the future looks kind of weird and wonky and maybe scary, because AI is like right around the corner, dude. Like AI, ChatGPT passed the Wharton Business MBA exam. They passed the bar. ChatGPT passed the bar. And it's not to say that, it's sentient and it's ready to take over, but like things are going to get a lot different than they have been soon. Not to scare anyone. I'm so intense. I don't mean to be. I just mean like change is coming. And it's not going to be about like political stuff or, I think that it's going to be about digital change and like just millions of people not like working like they used to. I gotta say that this shit with Wizards has like really shocked me. Because seemingly we won. I mean, I'm sure Wizards thinks that they won too, but like, that's weird, right? That's not normal. And I think that I talked about this before when we were talking about the OGL originally, like nerd community strong, man. They changed Sonic. That was the first time, at least that I know of, that that's actually happened, where like people got together and were like, we don't like this. And then they were like, oh, well then let's change it. I'm not saying that it's a full win, but like I'm surprised that we got what we got. You're living in Oz? Oh, Australia. Saddened by the events in America the past few years. My heart goes out to those who have lived there. Truly rough times. It's weird, man. It's weird. And really part of it is just how goddamn many of us there are in this place, you know? There's over 330 million people here. I think that people forget that like the population in a lot of those other places is just not that high. 330. Hi, Levi. If you're just joining with OGL, yes, Meta, I agree. We have not won yet. But Levi, earlier at the show, you'll be able to see on the VOD if you want to, or you can just go check it out yourself. Or I mean, I can just pull it up right now, I guess. They did release a. Oh, whoops! That's not where I wanted to go. They did release another statement on the OGL, basically saying that they hear us, we're pissed. They're going to leave the OGL 1 in place, and then the SRD 5.1 is going to be available under Creative Commons license. So, it looks like that's good for us. I don't know. I feel like I've ignored Austin with the anxiety thing. Keeping yourself busy with stuff to do, really. Just not allowing yourself a lot of idle time to, like, reflect on the fact that we're flying through space at 60,000 miles an hour. I don't know. I would say barring talking to someone, I would say just keep your mind occupied with stuff. And see about, I don't know where you're from, but I mean, see about what your rules are for cannabis, because it helps a lot of people, man. It certainly helps me. And maybe that won't be the answer for you. Talk about that obviously with your doctor and or therapist, but I think it's an option that could be helpful for you. So think about that. I wish you the best. I was diagnosed ADHD when I was a kid. So I feel that I have real trouble focusing. Listen to any of my podcasts and you can tell I'm all over the place. And then depression is definitely there, but it's more anxiety. And a lot of it is just like staying medicated and staying busy. And just like not allowing, I guess, for that to put myself in a position where I'm going to go like all Nietzsche and stare into the abyss. And spinning at 1,000+ miles an hour, pole reversal and all. Yeah, that is wild. It's so hard to reconcile. But we don't have to, We don't have to have all the answers. That's something I think that we forget too. It's like you could just like live, We have all of these like social expectations, but the reality is like just live your life and don't hurt anybody. And if you're doing that, then you're good to go. Just hang in there. Marie Kondo, your personal life, cut out the toxicity from your life, distance from people that don't make you feel like a good person. Yeah, that's really good advice actually. From Anthony. I've become a bit of a hermit in the last decade. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that like I've really put myself into my craft. But yeah, some of that is like you got to cut people out sometimes, like people that don't enrich your life. And I think that's what Anthony's alluding to, because like Marie Kondo, obviously she's this Japanese woman and her ideals are about like cleanliness and organization. She's great. She has a show. I think it's on Netflix. What's it called? What's her show? Getting your life together with Marie Kondo. What's her show called? Yeah, does it bring you joy? Yeah, and I do that from time to time. I try to more with stuff because like I try not to be so materialistic. Autism, ADHD, and PTSD. My campaign helps me stay on routine and help stays calm. Good, that's good. Love your D&D skits. You've been a GM since '84. Hell yeah, fun seeing other people just having fun with it. Well, thank you, William. I'm glad you enjoyed the skits. Always happy to see the graybeards here, the old guard. Although 84 is not that old, but I mean, shoosh, I guess it only came out in like 74. But yes, does this person bring you joy? If not, get rid of that person. They might be dragging you down. All right, let's keep moving. Let's answer some more questions. Thank you, Austin. I hope you found something in there that you can use. Something that's helpful. So this one is from Steven. And Steven asks, I'm an older gamer. With the graybeards led right into this. I'm an older gamer. I started in 79, so I've seen and experienced a lot. Lately, I get the feeling that WotC and 5e have lost touch with their older fan base, and it doesn't seem like it's going to change in the future. So my questions are thoughts on 1D&D, thoughts on OSR, and where do you see RPGs in 5 years? Thank you for the question, Stephen. I don't think that you're wrong in saying that WotC is a little out of touch with their older players. But to be fair, lately, WotC seems to be out of touch with a lot of its players, if not all of them. I hear you. I started playing in the year 2005, and even back then, things were different, as you'll find in Stormrack or any of those books. Like, what I would say to you in the simplest terms and most convenient definitions is Breakfast Club letter stuff. In the simplest terms, I would say that, like, the game as it exists, because you referenced OSR, right? And I forget exactly what that stands for. I need to look it up. And I've looked it up before. But it is old school Renaissance. Yes. So it's the movement that is to essentially, like, keep the games that exist as they are alive. I think that with OSR, you kind of have answered your own question as to how to move forward. Because I'll say this, I don't think that WotC or Hasbro is interested in going backward, as it were, in the sense of, like, what their opinions are on things. Now, that might change in the future. I doubt it. They're probably going to do whatever they think is best for their bottom line, visually speaking. So at least from like a presentation standpoint, and all of those corporations do it, like when they all change their logo to rainbow for Pride Month, and then, like, as soon as it's over, they don't give a shit anymore. Like, I don't think that that's going to go anywhere inherently. But I think that with OSR, like, you kind of already have what you need. Join the one play test and teach the old ways to the noobs. That's what I did with Next 5e playtest to replace 4e. Yeah, I think that there's something to say about that too. Like, isn't soulless virtue signaling wonderful? Yeah. But I mean, they all do it, though, is the thing. It's like the nature of, that's the nature of business. That's what we've all decided on. Like, we all know what's going on. It's like, hey, do you need a coffee maker? It's like everybody knows what's going on. That said, like, I would say, yes, either potentially, if you're interested in possibly, putting yourself into a position where you might be able to pass on knowledge or information to the newer generation. But if you're more interested about just, like, playing your stuff, I would suggest sticking with your, the OSR community, as well as how do you keep OSR without getting stale? Well, I mean, you can continue to, there are a bunch of people in that movement that continue to produce content, right? And, like, if this thing that Wizards put out about the OGL is true, well, I mean, they never needed the OGL, I guess. What's the deal with OD&D and AD&D when it comes to content? Anybody know? Have we talked about that? I feel like maybe somebody asked about that either last week or the week before, and I didn't have, like, a full answer. Yeah, I think that in 5 years, I see RPGs as, like, I think the direction that it's going to be is going to be like World of Warcraft. Even if it's not exactly like that, even if it's not real time and it's like turn based and it's not like actual avatars per se, it's like minis. Even still, I think it's gonna probably go more and more towards that. And maybe it'll just be more like, maybe the virtual world will allow us to be more like the old days than we think. Maybe the virtual world will allow us a world where we can all like get on VR from our homes and like be in the same room together virtually and play. Um, at either way, it's going to be interesting to see what kind of creative stuff these companies do to stay relevant and profitable. I imagine it'll look like a lot like a freemium type Fortnite, PUBG type situation where it's like, okay, the game's free, but all the money is made in the store. And obviously, in this case, it won't be free. They're going to charge a monthly fee, but I think that there will also be a store. And so they'll probably make more of their money in people like buying upgrades for like their miniatures or characters, whether like visual or whether that's like with their apparel or with like visual effects with spells and stuff, than they do on the actual $30 a month. I bet you that they're running numbers, because that guy, Chris Cow, that took over is a mobile guy, right? So he probably came in with a bunch of numbers and was like, okay, so look, here's what we found. So from all of these people, they pay a monthly fee, right? We know those people are going to pay the monthly fee. Now, we also have this subset of people, of those people who pay the monthly fee, who also pay additional money on top of that to us. Now, with these numbers, we can show that 40% of these users are going to continue to buy things as long as we provide them things in the store to purchase. I'm sure that conversation happened, and that's what they're going to be. That's what their goal is all roads back. All roads lead back to just making people more money. The OSR movement is publishing content like Swords and Wizardry and Old School Essentials. If you forgive WotC and buy D&D, you're paying the slime that wrote OGL 1.2. Yeah, they did write it, and then they lied about it, which is like kind of worse, right? It's one thing to get caught doing some shit that's out of pocket. It's another thing to be like, whoa, what are you talking about? No, we never intended to. And it's like, well, don't lie now that you've been caught. Like, and certainly don't make it seem like the whole reason you did all of this was to like protect us from people like you. That doesn't make sense. Don't say that. I'm getting mad just thinking about it. I mean, at the moment, I think we're in a good place. We're in the right direction for now, but definitely keep our eyes on it, folks. Hopefully that helps Stephen give you some sort of an answer. What I guess the short answer I would say is to just like stick with what you already have and love and know. And then if you want to dip your toe in like talking with the newbies about stuff, then I think you can do that. But I wouldn't put any eggs in my basket for Wizards to go more back to where the way things used to be. I wouldn't hold out on that. So thank you. Moving right along, because I want to get through these last couple of ones. There's only a few more. This one is from Chelsea. I am having trouble coming up with interesting and engaging storylines for my campaigns. Do you have any tips for generating exciting and immersive plot lines in D&D? Well, I would definitely suggest any type of, Reddit has a writing prompts subreddit, right? Isn't it our writing prompts? That might be good for you, because even though they're not D&D specific, there's a lot of cool stuff on there. And it very well might send you totally spinning down some really cool hallway of stuff. Like if you see some goofy, prompt that might like, you might create a whole world off of something that you find in there. Let's see some of the things people are saying in chat. Absolutely buy a PHB with the art binding and paper of the AD&D book. Oh, no, sorry, that's something else. Tape short written ideas to a wall and throw some darts. That's not a bad idea. Use ChatGPT, Alex says. That's actually the next thing I was going to say. So there are like writing prompts, B movies, Mike says. Old modules. You can look at old modules and plagiarize. That's actually cool. Yeah, you can go back to some of that dope stuff from like OD&D, AD&D days. Some of that stuff Steven's talking about, where it was like, before they were worried about like because I think the thing about D&D is that it kind of used to be like the safe haven and catch-all for like the quote-unquote outcasts or like the weirdos. And now that it's so popular and corporate America has recognized that it's so popular and, more importantly, profitable, it's having some weird things going on. Some growing pains, I guess you could call it. But yeah, you can go back to some of that old stuff and find cool stories. And again, even if you don't like use them directly, they can point you in a direction. A prompt is sometimes all you need. I've written entire scripts off of like a sentence I read somewhere and then thought of an idea. River says, I find inspiration from all forms of entertainment, from past campaigns to books, manga, anime. Oh, dude, anime is beautiful. There's a lot of great stuff in anime. Movies, shows, even music. We did do a fast food edition, although it's not called that. It's one of the customer services. I think it's the second or third customer service edition. They work fast food. Run it through the old clown putter. Clown putter. Fairy tales are great when you warp them a bit. Yeah, and ChatGPT, while it... we recently made AI edition, and the reason that I made that is because I kind of wanted to like stave off some of like maybe the paranoia that ChatGPT is going to replace DMs, because like maybe in the future, and to an extent, like yeah, but I think the DMs are going to be able to use it as way more of a tool than it's going to be able to replace them, at least immediately. I think eventually AI will be good enough. I mean, you can play with ChatGPT technically, but like in my estimation and experience, it's not as good as it is to play with a human. Side quest in the current game you're running was inspired by Grave of the Fireflies. Pull a story from your favorite fantasy book. Yeah, even something as simple as like picking up like a book of poetry or something, like just almost like, you know how like they have that stuff. What's that stuff that you eat between the meal? And it's like, it's an aperitif. Is that what it's called? It's supposed to be like a palate cleanser. I sound really bougie saying that, but it's really just like a sorbet type thing. But that's kind of like what you're doing mentally. I've talked about that with like writer's block. Like you kind of want to clear your palate. And so like, interestingly, if you want to think of like really cool ideas for D&D, don't think about really cool ideas for D&D. Just like go about your day, and just like consume media, just like look at stuff that you like. And I think you'd be surprised that stuff will come to you, especially the less you try to force it. The more that you just kind of like live your life and do your thing and hang out, like I think the more susceptible you are to picking up these ideas of just like, oh, well, because, if you're not like hyper focused and obsessed with it, it's like the watch pot never boils, right? So step away from it a little bit mentally and just like play a video game or something. And then like, I think you'd be surprised what little, yeah, Levi says, let your subconscious mind take over. Yeah, no doubt. Like just, some of the best ideas, most of the best ideas I've ever had were very out of nowhere. It was not like, very rarely am I like actively trying to come up with a really cool idea and then I come up with a really cool idea. It's almost always that it just happened. So give yourself a break, I'd say, and try not to worry so much. Chaz, can I email you a campaign idea and get your feedback? Of course. I'll probably, do you want me to do it on here? I can always just do it to you like personally and send you an email, but I'm happy to do it on here too. Totally use stuff you like, books you read and such. Can't think of a fantasy setting for your campaign you build for a different setting. The further from fantasy as possible, and it tends to make my fantasy thoughts come out. Yeah, definitely. That happens for me all the time, where it's just like, oh man, I really need to come up with this thing for this. And then it's like, just as an example, it's just like, oh yeah, well, I've really got to write this fantasy campaign. It's like, okay, well, let's go watch a documentary on like Pez dispensers, which we just watched, by the way. That documentary is crazy. The Pez Outlaw. I'd recommend it. Check that out. It's crazy town. But yeah, like during the Pez thing, it's like you catch an idea for a fantasy game. It's like that's just an example of how it happens. So like, okay, yeah. Just send it to the bardadvice email. That's fine. Just send it there. I'll do my best to answer it there. You honestly find writing short stories helpful with ideas. Enjoy creating the universe, then breaking it down into game terms. Yeah. I mean, also everybody's different, right? So like whatever works best for your process. But in my tenure as a writer, I have found that like the less you force it, the better it is. Like the easier it is to come up with the thing that you need. So thank you, Chelsea. We have 2 more questions here. Don't do detailed convoluted storylines anymore. Basic framework and let the players fill in the details. Yeah. I mean, you could end up shooting yourself in the foot, I think. And River, you've probably found that. I know I've found that in the past. Gosh, I mean, it's like you prepare for so much and then it goes completely sideways. And then it's like, well, what's even the point? And then also, I think you find that when you let the players drive more, it ends up being more fun anyway. And also for you, because if you let them drive more, you can allow yourself to be surprised and have to think more on the fly. So it's more fun for you, I think. All right, so let's get to these last 2 questions. It's not the last, it's the second to last. The second to last question is from Sam. And Sam says, veteran D&D player here. As a player, how do I balance the need for strong character development with the need for efficient gameplay in a campaign? Yeah, that's definitely a vet question. So the need for strong character development and the need for efficient gameplay. So I think that it's going to depend on like what your definition of efficient gameplay is. Because I think that some people would argue that strong character development is efficient gameplay. Now, I know that sounds like that might be kind of a cheap answer because I just like combined your questions. But I really do believe that. Like, efficient gameplay. Now, do you mean in the sense of like speed? Do you mean in the sense of like not slowing stuff down? Because if that's the case, I think that there are a lot of moments for character development in like times where you're resting or like downtime. I think that there are a lot of moments that are there that are good for character development. So you don't necessarily have to be like engaging in something, right? Like some people make their identity whatever it is they're doing. So if they're like the carry or like the DPS, like if they're the damage dealer of the party, then that's kind of like their identity that they're gonna develop. I mean, now that's not necessarily the case because they could make them whatever they want to in their character. But I just mean that like I think that efficient gameplay, it comes down to what your goal is as a party. So, if your goal as a party is to like, finish the campaign in 6 weeks and, you know where the BBEG is and you're going to go there and you're going to get there and you're going to kill them and then you're going to be done with the campaign, then that's one thing. If it's a thing where it's like, we're just going to play this homebrew till it's done and it could be like an 18-month or a 24-month game, what's the rush? Like, let's see here what some of the people say. A great example would be, how do you get an artificer to be really heavy into crafting when they barely get any bonuses to normal crafting when their whole shtick is crafting of mundane items? Okay. In a day-to-day session, you're not really going to know where you're going to end. What really is the definition of efficient? Yeah, I wonder that myself. I think that maybe this might be like balancing a question of like balancing mechanics and RP. In which case, again, I think it depends on the party. It depends on not even just the party, but like the specific situation, right? Like if you're in combat, probably not the best time to like do a monologue that like shows people who your character is. Now, maybe it is. Maybe your character is like a warrior, and that's in fact the perfect time for you to do character development. But I think it's a matter of like what is called for in the moment as well as what's called for in the overall party. And I think that also, your goal is to have fun. So whatever works best for you, I think. Um, has your DM told you that your role play is interrupting the efficiency of the game? Because that just doesn't make sense. I possibly could be misunderstanding the question, but it seems that this is a question about balancing mechanics and RP. In which case, I would just say, like, you're a vet, right? So, like, I can't imagine that you would be doing anything that would be inefficient to the gameplay. I'll have to, I might need to think more about this, but my initial reaction and answer is just gonna be like, I think that it's your call. I think that there's not a standard, and I think that that might be your issue, is that you think that there is. Now, maybe the DM has expressed that they find that you take too long to do stuff, in which case that's a separate conversation. But I mean, if you're just like in general worried if like your dedication to role play is negatively impacting the efficiency of the game, like maybe, I mean, talk to the other players and DM about it and see if that's even true. Could just all be in your head. It probably is all in your head if the DM's not saying it to you. I certainly don't know of there being like a standard as to like how long stuff should take. In fact, stuff taking long is kind of the bit. That's like one of the running jokes in the community, is that it's like, D&D is the game where walking 5 miles takes 2 minutes, but having a combat session for 2 minutes takes 3 hours. So yeah, I don't know that there is such thing as efficient gameplay in D&D. I think that there's just gameplay. But that's just like my opinion, man. Well, thank you, Sam. Hopefully that's some sort of an answer for you. RP can be inefficient if your long-winding speech isn't advancing the plot or you're trying to seduce the fish instead of crossing the bridge. Yeah, that's true. But, also, like, what are we all here for? Because, like, if your long-winded speech isn't advancing the plot, it's efficiency by an individual's standards. Right. So maybe they're talking about min-maxing efficiency too. Oh, that's true. Huh. They could be talking about min-maxing. But even still, like, just because a character's min-maxed doesn't mean you can't richly develop them. I think you'll be fine. I think you're overthinking it. That's my answer. I think you're overthinking it. Because, like, if you're a vet, then you're not going to slow things down by not knowing the rules. You know the rules. And you obviously know how to develop an RP. Or develop a character, rather. Yeah. Any min-maxer has a weakness. That's true. All right, so let's move on. Let's wind down. We got one last question, gang. And this last one, if you can believe it, is from Chris. As I think every week, at least since the Chris week, we've had a question from Chris. Let me get in there and see what it says. Chris asks, when filming, do actors have to stick 100% to the script, or can they ad-lib? I saved this question for last because it's really fun. I like it, and I'm gonna have fun answering it. They 100% ad-lib all the time. And in fact, like most of the funnier stuff on the channel was ad-libbed. Um, they have a script. Yeah, that we got scripts. I got to write those things every week. Yeah, it's so yes. Typically, I will send the script out like the night before. I'm really bad about that. It's a flaw. I need to improve upon it. It would be nice if I could get them the scripts like a couple of days before we shoot, but typically I send the scripts out at the last minute because that's just how I roll. That said, a lot of times they don't even have time to like really read through and practice. And so that's why if you watch the bloopers, they have the script. Yeah, we usually do have and now we do, we've got a little iPad that's up in front of us that we can just very easily reference for the script stuff. But yeah, dude, I'm like, so Justin and I both come from like improv. When I was a kid, did a lot of stuff, and less as I got older, I got more into music. But when I was younger, when I was in like, third, fourth, fifth grade, I did a lot of like acting, like did theater camps and stuff, and did like, I was very privileged as a child, I'll say. I was very fortunate to have access to do a lot of cool stuff like that. But yeah, I did a lot of like theater camps and improv stuff. So that's kind of like where I come from anyway. And then I know that Jay comes from, Jay's just a bard in general. Really, we all are kind of, but Justin also comes from the world of improv. He did a lot. He was in an improv troupe for a number of years. Like, so that's just kind of like where we go, like naturally. Honestly, the script is like kind of an outline. Surprisingly they stick to the script more than I thought that they would when we at least started stuff. Which is good. I think that it makes me feel good because like I try to pride myself on writing good dialogue. Ever since I saw like my first Quentin movie, I've been obsessed with writing like strong, realistic dialogue. Which, essentially that's all the sketches are. But that said, like, it's nice to see that a lot of times they're able to just do the joke, especially too, since like over the years, I've really like, and I've known all of these people for a long time anyway, and they've all been like friends. But as we've produced the show and done it so many different times, I have gotten to see how they perform to the point where, like, if I write a line out, I know how Jay or Melissa or Rigsby is going to say it. Even Justin, like, when I write the line out, I know how it's going to be delivered. And then sometimes I'll just, like, put a note. A lot of times with Jay, I'll do, like, I'll just put, like, an asterisk and be, like, make a wrestling joke or something. Because, like, I just kind of, like, leave that to him. But the short answer is that, like, yeah, there's a good amount of ad lib. Ooh, camp edition would be fun when they go to camp. Sarah scares me at times. Sarah scares me all the time. So that's the short answer, Chris. Yeah, a bunch of it's ad libbed. I'm not a huge stickler about the script. But yeah, there's a lot of just like, we just play around with it when we get there. She is supposed to be scary. Yeah, no doubt. Whose idea was it to make the Sarah character to the min-maxing evil murder hobo? You know what's funny? Like, I never planned it, really. It just kind of happened. I never, like, sought out to... Because I don't know if people know. I'm sure that a lot of y'all have heard. I've said this before. I've talked about it before on the pod. We never planned on doing the D&D edition series when we first started it. Like, it was when we did it originally, we were just doing it as a standalone sketch, and it picked up a little steam and people liked it. And then I made the second one. Then I wrote the second one and we did that one, and then it just kind of like snowballed from there. And now there's all these. We've got so many of them now. But that said, like I never had any kind of outline or plan for like what the characters would be. It was always just about like making it funny. And so I think that with not only with what each of the characters brought to their roles, but also with like the way that I've kind of really the way that I've always written them, and especially now, is that they're just kind of exaggerated versions of themselves. So like Sarah's like this really tough chick, and it's like Melissa's kind of that way. She's certainly not that intense. She's very sweet. She's a great person. But you know that's it's a hyper exaggerated version of her, which is the same for like Lance and Waylon. Um, and so I think that as a result, it lets them have more fun, or at least more organically portray the role, um, and have fun with it, with doing like improv and ad lib stuff. All right, so I think that that's it, gang. We're wrapping up here. We're already through an hour. It blew by. I can't believe it. Thanks everybody so much for joining me. You know, I didn't say that at the top of the episode, dang it, and I should have. Maybe I did say it. Why don't Waylon's characters yawn? I haven't had a yawn in a while, actually. Oh, I need to go through gag reel footage this evening for tomorrow, for this weekend's episode. Okay. So yeah, I've got to hop off, gang. Yeah, I think that maybe in the future we might run it longer. I don't want to get ahead of myself in saying that. Let's just, let's get past 20 episodes first, before we start changing the format. But yeah, this has been fun. Thanks everybody for coming to hang out. Just a reminder here towards the end of the episode, go check out Ant's stuff, Ant House Beats. He's got great stuff. His link tree's in the description. Also, I've got my PayPal, my Venmo, my Cash App. It's all Yazik. If you want to donate for music stuff, I'm always working on music stuff. You can go to manshorts.com for merch. And you can send all of your questions or add comments, complaints, curiosities to bardadvice@gmail.com. Bardadvice, it also looks like. And yeah, thanks everybody for coming to hang. I'm really starting to enjoy doing this. Not that I've not enjoyed it up to this point, but I feel like there was like a bit of a bumpy start with the internet stuff, and then just like, obviously all this OGL stuff, but like I feel like I'm really starting to get into the pocket of like really loving doing this. So thank y'all again for showing up. I will be here next week, same Bard time, same Bard channel. 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Man Shorts YouTube channel. This VOD will actually be available not immediately, but pretty immediately after I'm done streaming it as a VOD. And then the audio of this podcast episode will be available tomorrow, Saturday at noon. So thanks again, all of you, for showing up. I hope that you have a fantastic weekend. Keep your eye on the OGL. We'll talk more about stuff next week. And